Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Welcome.
Yes.
You're very tall. Come.
Do you mind if I address the crowd?
Oh, you can address the crowd standing, but you have 2 minutes to do it, and then we go to 7 minutes and seconds. Yes.
Good morning. Buenos dias. On this very day, July 24th, 95 years ago, in my hometown of El Paso, Texas. There you go. Dr. Lawrence Nixon walked into fire station number 5, his polling location, showed up with his poll tax receipt and attempted to vote, and was turned away because of the color of his skin. The year before, 1923, Tech created the all-white Democratic primary. But Dr. Nixon, who had started the first branch of the NAACP in the state of Texas in El Paso, took his case to the Supreme Court twice. And through his courage and his persistence and his patience, he integrated our democracy, at least took the first step in Texas. And in 1944, almost 20 years to the day, he walked back in to fire station number 5 and proudly cast his ballot. That is owing to the tenacity and the leadership of this organization, and it was the inspiration for our campaign last year in Texas, where we encountered a state that previously had ranked 50th in voter turnout, not because we love our democracy any less than you do here in Michigan, but we were literally drawn that way. Based on your race, your ethnicity, your country of national origin, you were drawn out of a congressional district to diminish the power of your vote or the likelihood that we would hear your voice. But to transcend that, we went to every single one of the 254 counties of Texas, showed up for everybody, and won more votes than any Democrat had in the history of the state of Texas. That is how we are running this campaign today. That is how we will defeat Donald Trump, writing nobody off, bringing everyone in, taking no one for granted. And that is how, in January of 2021, we will bring this great divided country back together again.
Time for questions.
Thank you all for having us out.
Let's have a seat. Let's visit. Yes. Yes, let's visit. Okay. Do you favor full restoration of the Voting Rights Act, especially Section 5 requiring pre-clearance of election changes?
Yes.
Explain.
If we had that, Stacey Abrams would be the governor of the state of Georgia right now. We would not have racist voter ID laws in my home state of Texas. In addition to that, racial gerrymandering. Right now in Texas, you can use your license to carry a firearm to prove who you are at the ballot box, but you cannot use your student ID at Texas Southern University to prove who you are at the ballot box. A new Voting Rights Act removes those barriers, and then we're going to follow the lead of Secretary of State Benson and the state of Michigan. Same-day voter registration, automatic voter registration, ending gerrymandering, and no more political action committees or corporations contributing to federal candidates or office holders. We're going to get our democracy back for everyone.
What is your plan to reduce the cost of prescription drugs, as Pharma says the price is built in due to, in part, lengthy research?
We're going to sign into law Medicare for America, which means that if you don't have insurance today, you're automatically enrolled in Medicare. If you're insufficiently insured, we'll enroll you as well. If you have employer-sponsored insurance and you like it, you can keep it. It will allow us to make prescription drugs affordable for everyone. And we'll also use the purchasing power as leverage for Medicare to bring down, negotiate down the price of prescription drugs. In addition, we'll allow you to go right over the border here in Canada and buy from Canada, the European Union, Japan, other countries selling medications at a far lower price with the same high level of quality. So allowing you to buy overseas, allowing Medicare to negotiate down the price, and guaranteeing universal high-quality care for every American. That makes medication and health care affordable for all.
So how will you safeguard if you buy drugs from another country that don't necessarily have the same regulations and guidelines that are here?
We will ensure, and that's why I use Canada and the European Union as examples. We will ensure that they meet the same strict standards that we have here in the United States. The problem is, you and I, as taxpayers in this country, invested in the drugs that are being sold back to us at the highest prices on the face of the planet today, the research and development, the clinical trials, the fact that we purchase them for Medicare and Medicaid, TRICARE and VA beneficiaries. Let's use that leverage to bring down the cost. And then in addition, let's allow some competition from these other countries as long as we're satisfied that they're maintaining that same or a better level of quality.
What is your agenda for the LGBT community?
I want to make sure that we allow every single American to live to their full potential. That means in a state like mine in Texas, where you can be fired based on your sexual orientation, where you can be denied the ability to adopt a child out of a foster care system that has 30,000 children today because of your sexual orientation, that we sign into law the Equality Act that guarantees the full civil rights of every single American. We overturn the transgender troop ban. We follow the lead of people like Janice Poindexter, whom I met here in Detroit, who told me about the fact that you have so many trans women of color who are being killed in this country without the necessary follow-up or pursuit of justice, the resources necessary for those police departments and the DAs to stop this epidemic of crime against trans women of color. We want to make sure that everyone is safe in their own communities and everyone is free to live up to their full potential.
What is your plan to eradicate or lower student loan debt?
Let's do this. Let's stop digging the hole in the first place. Ensure that the first 2 years of higher education are absolutely free for every American.
How do you pay for that?
I'll tell you, but I want to give you one more idea on this.
Okay.
Second, let's make sure that for a 4-year degree, it is debt-free for lower income and middle income Americans. And those who are holding outstanding student loan debt right now, we are going to radically restructure the public service debt forgiveness program. If you're willing to serve as a public school educator, we will wipe clean your debt so you can focus on those children in front of you in the classroom. And we'll pay for it by making sure that everyone pays their fair share in this country. Take a corporate tax rate that was dropped from 35 to 21%, back up to 28%. It generates hundreds of billions of dollars over the next decade, more than enough resources to invest in the future and the careers of our fellow Americans, and also to ensure that for those who do not pursue higher education, that we elevate the roles of unions and allow people to enter apprenticeships debt-free, learning a skill or a trade that will allow you to command a living wage for the rest of your life.
Wow. I want you to finish this sentence. The biggest misconception about me is...
Perhaps the biggest misconception about me, given where we are in the polls today, is that our chances have narrowed and diminished in this race. But I want to tell you, when I first ran for Congress in 2012, we also ran against the incumbent and we ran against the odds. No one gave us a snowball's chance in Houston of being successful in that race. But believing in the people of our community and these great supporters and volunteers, friends and family, we knocked on thousands of doors, listened to our fellow El Pasoans, and won that race. And then in Congress, delivered for our constituents, though we were in the minority every single day of the 6 years that we were there. In Texas, taking on Ted Cruz, and not only winning more votes than any Democrat before us, but winning independents for the first time in decades, winning 500,000 Republicans, and electing 2 new members of Congress, helping to flip the House of Representatives, and 17 African-American women to judicial positions in Harris County, changing the face of criminal justice in that community. So we have been a long shot before, counted down before, but through our persistence and our courage, I know that we can come through for the American people and serve this great country.
Now you're closing.
One last thought on El Paso. And you'll forgive my pride in my hometown, but there's a lot to be proud of. And I'll tell you another person who inspires me. Thelma White, in 1954, graduated from the all-black Douglas High School, attempted to enroll in Texas Western College, and again because of the color of her skin, was turned away. She enlisted the aid of the NAACP in Texas, a little-known attorney named Thurgood Marshall, and they took that case to the federal bench of R.E. Thomason, and not only did her persistence and courage and the decision in that federal court allow her to attend Texas Western College, it integrated higher education throughout the state of Texas, and it struck down the segregation clause in our state constitution. That is why we are going to make sure, as the inheritors of her sacrifice and her service and her struggle, that we invest in true equality, in equity, in education for every single American. We are going to start a $500 billion permanent education fund for equity and excellence. We are going to make sure that we address the disparity in public education funding for communities of color, $23 billion a year. We're going to make sure that we invest in minority-serving institutions, historically black colleges and universities, to train the next generation of teachers, because while funding is important, it's also just as important that the teachers in that classroom look like the students in front of them. We're going to make sure that we live up to the full potential and promise of this country. It is an honor to run, to serve you, and I ask for your help and your support in the great mission ahead. Thank you so much for having us out here today. Les agradezco. Gracias. Thank you very much.
Candidate number 3, Beto O'Rourke. Thank you so much, sir.
Gracias.
Thank you so much. De nada. Gracias. I can do that too. Are you gaining the needed information from these candidates?